Hey, what's up, Internet? This is Doc, and bringing you a little Bad Company 2 with some tips and tricks for you today. So I see a lot of people on YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else talk about how Battlefield is not a game that can be played fast, and that couldn't be further from the truth. It is not easy to play it fast, I will say that. As the frame rate is lower than Call of Duty and all that, it just doesn't generally lend itself to a faster gameplay style, but it is totally possible. It's how I play the game. I pretty much just run everywhere, all the time. Medics chase me with health, people chase me with ammo, what have you. Unless I absolutely have to have it, I never stop and pick it up because that just slows me down. And really, for me, it works pretty well. Rush especially, being fast is a huge asset in your arsenal of rush tactics. The faster you get to the MCOMs and arm them, the less time enemies have to go ahead and be placed at strategic spots and what have you. So this is a game of Conquest on Erica Harbor, which is probably my favorite Conquest map. They always seem to turn out to be pretty competitive matches and pretty badass. And this one was no exception. Except I get kicked from the server like about 15 minutes in or something like that, which kind of sucked because I was having a really good game. This would have easily been like a 50 plus 60 kill game, no problem. Possibly even a win. But once I got back into the game, it was almost over. The enemies had capped all the flags while I was gone. Like Memphis 10 was in there by himself. Once I got kicked, trying to hold off an onslaught of bad guys on 3 flags while the Blueberries did whatever it is Blueberries do while the rest of us are out winning matches. So yeah, I want to talk about stuff to speed up your gameplay, because it'll definitely help out. The PC, you see a lot of people play fast. The PC typically runs at a higher frame rate, so it's a little bit easier to pull off there. And so in my PC gaming that I've been doing on this game, I actually adjusted the field of view, which makes it look like I'm running even faster than I already am, and I love it. I feel like I'm just flying across the map, which is totally killer. But yeah, the console is a little bit different since it only runs at 30 frames per second. It's usually the biggest reason people give for why it doesn't play well if you try a run and gun strategy. But I mean, that's all I do, and I have pretty good games. A lot of wins, a lot of good kill-death ratio games as well, and all that good stuff. So I've written down a couple things here that I want to mention that are just some tips to speed up your game. The first one is lightweight pack. Helps out a lot. I run it on everything. If I'm sniping, doing the aggressive recon thing, so to speak, put the lightweight pack on it and just use the regular scope, because the faster you are, the better off you'll be. It helps you avoid gunfire, helps you get to cover quicker, lets you run up and stab people in the back. Whatever the case may be, it is never a bad idea to have it on there. The weapons that I prefer to use for this kind of playstyle, really you can do it with anything. I have the least amount of success with the medic LMGs. I don't know why that is, but they just don't really work out for me quite as well. My favorites are the SMGs you see here. The XM8 Compact is what I'm using right now. And shotguns. Shotguns work really well also. A little bit more difficult though, because you're limited by the range. You pretty much have to switch to your pistol if they're too far away. Whereas the SMG is a beast up close, and if you need to hit something long range, while it may not be as easy as if you were using an assault rifle or whatever, it can be done if you just make sure to burst fire and be fairly accurate. So down here I actually jumped into an impossible situation. Like there was no way I was going to kill all 3 of those guys. I figured, what the hell. If nothing else, I would get at least 1 or 2 of them and slow them down from getting up to B, which is exactly what happened. So yeah, that actually worked out in my favor. I don't particularly care too much about my kill-death ratio. It's nice that when it is positive, but if if an objective requires me to make stupid KD decisions, then I have no problem making those decisions. It's really not that big of a deal. I would much rather have good wins than good kills. So yeah, there's another impossible situation there. I was probably not going to kill all three of those guys, but I had to do something. Couldn't just let them stand there. Probably would have been better to take a different route. Which leads me to the next thing, cover. Use cover often. Know good cover areas. If you're running up to something, don't run through the middle of the map where there is no cover. Or if you have to, try and stay behind shit as much as possible. Because typically the enemies are fairly predictable as to where they're going to be and where they're going to be shooting at in terms of a direction. And so if you just keep stuff between you and that spot, it'll help you stay alive a lot longer. Always run through a building if there is one available. But if the building, for whatever reason, can't be run just straight through, if you have to do a lot of jumping or whatever, then I suggest avoiding it and going around. Anything that slows you down, slows your momentum, is going to put a hitch in your giddy-up, so to speak, make your life just a little bit more difficult. And so the more momentum you can keep up, the better off you'll be, at least in my experience anyway. And on the topic of predictability, this is something that I find to be true for pretty much any shooter game. If you play a game long enough, you'll notice that there are certain areas where people will almost always be of various classes. You know, snipers are always going to be on that one hill that almost every map has. There's certain spots whenever people are trying to arm an MCOM or capture a flag in Conquest or whatever, where they will always be doing that from. So if someone arms whatever MCOM, there's always that little spot of cover that you're more than likely going to find the guy who armed that MCOM sitting behind. Just general things of that nature. And tracking people is something that I do. That's to say that, if you play enough matches, which newer players won't quite have this ability because they haven't really played very many matches since they're newer players. Keeping track of what people do. You see a lot of people typically play the game the same way as everybody else, and they will have predictable routes that they run. When you first start the match, there'll be that one guy who's always in that same spot every single time, and just keep track of stuff like that. Remember it, and then use it to your advantage by flanking those positions or avoiding those positions altogether. And on the topic of momentum right here, I'm trying to capture C, and it is literally killing me to stand there until it is captured. I'm just running around in circles, just, oh my God, I gotta move. But yeah, flanking is huge. Knowing where people are typically going to be and what direction they're facing. Like a lot of times, generally you'll find that when you spawn in Conquest on a flag that you have, more than likely it is going to spawn you facing the enemy's deployment. Now, if they've captured flags behind you and all over the place, they're not coming from the direction of their deployment. That could be a problem. And so know where people are more than likely going to be looking, where they're going to be spawning. Just generally what their habits in the match are going to be, because almost everybody is going to do kind of the same thing, and then try and not do those things. That keeps you unpredictable, so other people that are doing the same thing have no real sense of where you're going to be coming from. You become an enigma at that point. And with this advantage, you're taking people by surprise. You come around a corner and, holy shit, where did that guy come from? Nobody ever comes around that corner. And then they no longer have that sense of, alright, I can stand here and just kill everyone that comes around this one corner because nobody ever comes around the other corner. I know that's kind of confusing, but essentially, if you take away that feeling of them being assured that things are going to go a certain way, that works to your advantage. And also just keeping track of what other people do and knowing that information yourself allows you to take advantage of their positioning and such as that. So what is next? I've talked about the flanking already. Flanking is huge. Come up behind people as much as possible. You can get an easy triple spray, quadruple spray even. Switch to the pistol and take out a couple more. Get a couple dog tags, whatever. Coming up behind someone or in any direction that they're not actively facing will always be to your advantage in pretty much every situation, no matter what game you're playing, whether it's COD, or Battlefield, or Killzone, or anything really. And so if you can predict where they're going to be facing, then flanking is just that much easier. It takes all the guesswork out of it. Every now and then you'll come across another person who doesn't play in a predictable manner, and that's when things get a little bit tricky, because you always have to kind of watch your ass at that point as well, because you don't know where they're going to be coming up either. And also another big thing about this is use all of your senses, sound, sight, everything. If you hear a grenade land somewhere, just look around, run out of the way, jump, do whatever you have to do to get out of there. If you hear enemy voices, if you're an American, you hear a Russian, then someone is nearby, and vice versa. If you hear a sniper ball, but you don't see anybody, then it's probably a pretty good idea to try and go ahead and start taking some of that cover. Just getting the hell out of that area, finding a place, getting as far away from it as possible, because then they know where you are, and if you can move away from it, then you take away that advantage that enemy has over you. And your kill-death ratio. As we all know, kill-death ratio, not a big deal in this game. Some people pride it over everything else, whereas others do not, such as myself. I'm more concerned about the win. I like to keep a good kill-death ratio, but if it's necessary to sacrifice that to achieve whatever objective, then that's fine. I can live with that. And typically this kind of playstyle does not really lend itself to having a great KD for the most part. There's a lot of campers in Battlefield. It's a well-known fact. There's a lot of people that play slow and cautious, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're necessary to anchor spawns, to cap objectives, to not die as much, while the rest of us are doing other stuff. And so your kill-death ratio is typically not going to be super awesome. I can definitely say that. It's not going to be necessarily bad if you do it properly, but don't expect to have a whole lot of like 74 in one game or anything. It's just not likely going to happen. It will happen occasionally, I can attest to that, but the likelihood of it taking place is pretty slim. So that's pretty much all I had to talk about here, I guess. And since I got kicked from the game, it will not show you the final stats, so I had to go through and watch this a couple times to count everything. And then I normally cut out the spawn time, so that counting the deaths was pretty easy. I think I ended up dying 14 or 15 times and got about 41, 42 kills. Which is pretty decent, just being at the center of the action all the time got me a whole bunch of kills, but also a pretty good number of deaths. But I can live with that ratio. 40 something and 15ish is a pretty solid ratio in my opinion, and I can't complain. So that's really all I got. If you got any questions, leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer it, and I hope you can take some of this advice to heart. And thanks for watching.